Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Above the Bar podcast, a show about a middle-aged father, current events, and how these things affect my everyday life. Alrighty, folks, as always, it is Wednesday, 8 p.m., and welcome back to the bar. We're all going to belly up the bar. It's the Above the Bar podcast. Tonight, we have something that's near and dear to my heart, but closer to my belly. It's my favorite thing in the world to talk about. Anyone who knows me, you get a couple of moments with me. You tell me what city you're in. I will probably tell you something I've eaten there, something I love there. I spent most of my time in the Marine Corps on recruiting duty, and I used to tell my Marines all the time, if you want to know a community, know where they eat. So I figured if you want to know anything and everything about what we've got going on here, we're going to have to introduce this man. And before I introduce him, I want to read a couple of things here. You know, for those of you that know news, you know who George Stephanopoulos is. If I can George Snuffleupagus. Terrific food journalism. Page uncovers the untold stories of American food. A great read. The 2021 International Book Award finalist in History, United States. Living Now Book Award Silver Cookbook Ethnic Holidays. #1 release in history, humor, food, and cooking, and media tie-in cookings. David Page changed the world of food television by creating, developing, and executive producing. And if you can introduce me to this man, you would be my new hero. The groundbreaking show, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. I would like to welcome, bellying up to the bar with us tonight, Mr. David Page. David, welcome.
Well, thanks, Sean. It's great to be here. You talk about identifying places through food. When my now 28-year-old daughter was 8, she looked up at me during some conversation and said, "Dad, how come every time we talk about going someplace, you talk about the food there?" It is the way to know a different culture or country.
Absolutely. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight, folks, is how do you know a community? How do you know things? God, we just had Benny Anderson, former Baltimore Raven, on last week, and he's in St. Louis, and he's talking about Italian food. I said, The Hill. I knew exactly where he was talking. I was like,
the toasted ravioli.
And that's exactly what he was talking about. So before we get too far into this and we miss out on all of our housekeeping, we got a little bit of housekeeping we always got to do. So first thing, as always, folks, we got the big board. We got sticker and a cause. If you have something that you're supporting, something you believe in, something that's important to you, maybe David's got a Food Americana sticker for us somewhere. He can send
I do.
over. And we will put the Food Americana sticker up here on the big board. This is your opportunity to get your thing out to a worldwide audience. You may not believe we're worldwide, but trust me, folks, we are worldwide. I get them every week. I get messages. Speaking of which, one of our listeners sent me the most impressive message. I want to mention him right now through Instagram, Preston Edwards. He said he listens all the time. And I'm telling you, his words meant so much to me. I shared it with my wife and my best friend. Preston, this show is dedicated to you. Thank you. Make sure you let everybody know to subscribe and share and like. Your likes and your follows get more people like Preston to get this opportunity to hear what we're doing, to know more about the show, and to know what's happening. Even if you're only watching the video, take a moment and go into whatever app you have. If you have an Android phone, your Google Podcast. If you're on an Apple phone, go into your Apple Podcast. And make sure you hit that follow button. Give us 5 stars. That's how everyone else gets to know about it. But at the same time, now, do you belong to any yard sale sites, David, on Facebook, any of that stuff? Any of those Facebook yard sales?
I haven't. I've been too busy writing. I'm sorry.
Big rut. I mean, who cares? It's words, David. Gosh. I mean,
sorry.
Gosh. So I always tell everyone, take a moment and share this Facebook feed and YouTube feed to all your yard sale sites. That way that you can try to get kicked off of them. I get messages all the time where people are like, "This is not relevant to our show." I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to share it here anyway. Like it's so like how is it not relevant? You eat, you want to know good food, so you got to know it. But we're going to get into this. I want David, what inspired this book other than you like to eat? What inspired you to write Food Americana?
Well, I'm a television producer the majority of my 50 plus year career. And every television producer is convinced he or she has a book in them because we kind of have a chip on our shoulder about the respect that writing for TV doesn't get. Write a book, you're an author. Write for TV, you're who the hell knows. And in fact, writing for television is in many respects harder than writing a book because you can't just sit down and tell the story. You can't, it was a dark and stormy night and then Oedipus killed his father. What you have to do is figure out the words that will seamlessly take you from one on-camera event to another. So your words are in service of picture and sound. And at some point, you look up and you say, this is hard. Stuff must be easy. Let me try that. And over time, over the years, even though I've been mostly in television, every few years I've changed the specifics of my gig. So I looked up not that long ago and said, it's book time. And I had my interest in understanding the culture of food beyond just going to McDonald's really occurred when I was sent to Europe unexpectedly to cover Europe, Africa, and the Middle East for NBC News many years back. I had never considered living internationally. And when they said, you want to move over there, I said, okay. I then was tasked with learning about and understanding all sorts of countries and cultures that I had, like most Americans, never paid any attention to. And as I started parachuting into country after country after country, it became clear to me what you said at the beginning of this show, that the gateway to understanding a culture is through its food. It tells you its history, it tells you its poverty level, it explains to you the climate in which people have to endure. And the opportunity to sit down and share food with people has always been, in many respects, about as intimate an experience as you can get in terms of understanding each other and telling tales, some of them true. So I came back to the States having I've always liked to eat. I'm not a ballerina, okay? I wore the big boy pants. But I came back to the States imbued with that interest. And a few years after returning, I ended up creating Diners, which was, in some respects, in many respects, a version of that concentration on the sociology of food. And it was a pretty short step from that to writing this book.
Now, you mentioned Triple D, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, probably one of the greatest hairs in all of television, Guy Fieri, if you don't know him. And,
keep talking.
And I will tell you right now, through the pandemic, one of the greatest humans on the planet. If you don't know Guy Fieri's foundation, I don't know the amount of millions that they donated directly to people in the food industry that needed that help. Take a moment, folks. If it doesn't give you chills to understand how much power a good heart and a good human have, go see what Guy Fieri did. I'm going to pitch it now, David. If you know him still and you still talk to him, I'd love to have him on. We can talk.
I will pass that along. I haven't done the show for many years, but I can get that message to him.
You get it, just slide it in there. So, I love the idea. So, what city are you in right now?
I'm on Long Beach Island in southern New Jersey, which is a barrier island, much like the ones in North Carolina. And we are, in essence, the first sandbar north of Atlantic City. So culinarily, we have some residual Philadelphia-ness, but what we have, and uh, obviously Jersey pizza and such, but what we have at the north end of this island, which is only a few blocks wide, but 13 miles long, is we still have a commercial fishing port. And every day, the day boats come back with what I believe to be the finest scallops on the face of the earth. However, what cracks me up is we have scallops. In August, we have tuna. We have fresh tuna that is brought in from offshore. We have monkfish, we have tilefish, we have a lot of great seafood here. And it just breaks my heart when I peek into one of the tourist restaurants and our visitors, and thank you for visiting, we need the cash, our visitors are eating fried shrimp that was imported from Indonesia. And I'm thinking to myself, look what we've got. Look at the scallops here. Or the other day, a friend's friend's boyfriend went out fishing, and our friend whose friend's boyfriend came back with the fish, I'll get it, came to the house with this hunk of fresh tuna, and I made pokey, and
Really?
Yeah, it was as good. The best poke I had was a fresh caught tuna in Hawaii. This was nearly as good. It was just stunning. Just stunning.
So you bring up the shrimp thing. Folks, I will say it today. I will say it now. If you fry shrimp, stop following me.
Ooh!
Please stop following me. There's only one way to eat shrimp, and that is steamed. That is it. I am from Baltimore originally there, David. So I understand.
So you know.
It is steamed with a Vidalia onion and Old Bay. That's it. And and in the water must be apple cider vinegar in the water. The apple cider vinegar in the water is a game changer. And on the top of the pot, please put little necks.
Well, in the high point of the pandemic, my wife and I had obviously been hiding. Daughter does, and she's 28. And we had gone nowhere. So we decided that the safe thing to do was get a B&B in a very sparsely populated B&B and go down to Chincoteague, where Maryland and Virginia come together in search of crabs and in search of the horses that live there, the wild ponies.
That's the Assateague horses on Assateague Island.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, what when you eat what comes from a local area, that's the way to eat. It's remarkable.
And if you haven't figured out, folks, in a moment here, David and I are going to virtually hug and snuggle and everything and talk about seafood, because I could do that all day long. Because I can tell you right now, in that same area, there's a river called the Wye River in Maryland.
Yeah,
and you will get the greatest blue crabs you have ever had
out of the Wye River.
The Wye River in Maryland
So is it salt water? Is it
brackish? It's brackish.
It's both, right?
So it's a freshwater river that comes down and hits the salt water, and we call those crabs in there mudders. When you flip them over, their belly is yellow. Because
that's also a great environment for certain oysters, as I understand it. And I think that the Chesapeake, where it I guess it has the same thing, where the fresh and salt water are coming together. Although the best oysters are here on the Jersey Shore.
No.
Actually, it cracks me up because you go out for happy hour and the local oysters are $1 a shuck and the fancy oysters are $2. And to my mind, ours taste better.
Look, I love Maryland fresh oysters. Raw oysters, shucked and handed to you. There is nothing quite like it. But we talk about these food trends. I can actually remember being a kid and my dad talking to me about why we steamed crabs with beer. And
what is the answer to that?
Because the water was gross and the beer was sanitary. That was my father, because my father was like,
Makes
why we
perfect
do.
sense.
He's like, son, because, and I was like, I don't know. He's like, because the water wasn't safe to drink. The beer was sanitary because it had been boiled and everything else. So that's why you use beer.
Which is why allegedly in the Middle Ages, be it true or not, supposedly people drank beer and wine instead of water for the same reason.
It makes perfect sense because of the sanitation side of it.
Right.
But now you've seen, and I can talk to the cities I've been to, the places I've been, and the cultures. Like I said, grew up in Baltimore. We had a very large Polish population, very large Italian and Irish population because of steel mills and that. Jersey, I imagine, I imagine they're very similar because we're both coastal that
Well,
way.
North Jersey is like that because it was industrial. South Jersey is really, I mean, less so this year, but for this decade. But for a long time, South Jersey was the boonies, and there was a group of people called Pineys because they lived they lived in the Pine Barren, and it was a negative term and left you feeling like the aspersion was it was kind of like Deliverance back there. That's all I can tell you.
Big Ned left us this year.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Ned Beatty. Well, so thinking about these food trends, and I probably get the guy's name wrong. Whenever I see him on TV, my wife goes, "That's the guy you want to hang out with."
Yeah.
Jose Lugo. Lugo, is that his name? The restaurateur that's always God, what the hell is his name?
I can't help you. I don't watch a lot of food television.
You make food television. I don't understand. You make it.
Oh, now I'm writing. I'm busy.
But I can't think of his name right now, but he wrote a cookbook.
Mm-hmm.
Correct myself. He opened a restaurant in DC based on like a 1700s cookbook where it had recipes for things like peanut butter and jelly and
I'm stunned.
mac and cheese. And the reason I bring that up is, what are some of the things that, like, because your book is about food trends and culture and how we've seen these changes. What are some of the things that right now that you might, I mean, obviously things availability, but what are some of the things that you might say that, hey, back in, I don't know, even in the last 20th century, that we might have been eating, or a food trend in the early 1900s that today we would be like, I'll be damned if I'm gonna eat that.
Well, quinoa came and went.
Yeah, that's currently, yes. Quinoa has gone the way of the dodo.
Oh, there was. Let me think. Do you remember liverwurst?
Yes, I like liverwurst.
So did I, but it was a cheap lunch, or pickle and pimento loaf. All of those processed lunch meats kind of had their day, and now if you go to a deli, we're seeing either legitimate meat or something claiming to be the same. It was funny. I heard on the radio the other day there was a discussion of Welsh rarebit. You remember Welsh rarebit? Okay.
No,
back in the 60s, it was, and I can't figure out if it was a hoity-toity dish or not, but basically it was toast topped with a combination of cream, cheese, salt, pepper, and Worcestershire sauce. And that was, Robert Van Steenberg loves liverwurst. That's what he should. That was a popular dish back then. I don't know the answer to this question. I wonder how much meatloaf people are making out there.
I love a good meatloaf.
A great,
Minnesota, yeah, but they're making meatloaf every day.
Well, like, you gotta, but
meatloaf. It's Minnesota.
Well, listen, I just got back from Minnesota. I'll tell you some stories. Of course, in Minnesota, they call it hot dish. That's right. Jeanette Sheehy says there's mustard in Welsh rarebit. She's right. I forgot that.
You got to know that Jeanette is our international. She lives here in Albany with me, but she is my number one fan international. She lets me know of anything that the English might have eaten.
Which is scary.
And well, I like to my. Do you want to know my favorite cooking show ever? And I love
Tell me.
cooking shows.
Tell me.
Two Fat Ladies.
Well, they were great. The food was good.
The Two Fat Ladies were the most amazing. And if you've never watched them, and
They're
anybody who's out there
fantastic.
like, oh my god, I can't believe he's saying that. That was the name of the show.
They were
They rode in a
fantastic.
motorcycle with a sidecar. They were
Yes.
amazing, and everything
Yes.
was put more lard or put more butter in it. It was amazing.
Well, but the fact of the matter is, fat's flavor. Last year? No, the year before last.
no
My
shit.
wife and I were in Spain around this time, and we took a cooking class. And because I have very bad rudimentary Spanish, and no one else in the class seemed to, the grandmotherly lady who was leading the class decided to basically interact with me. And at one point, she was explaining how to use olive oil. And what she said was, pour in more than you think you need, then pour in a lot more.
Really?
But fat is flavor. And it's funny when you talk about health or fitness, we go through these phases with fat. The fact of the matter is, you need some fat in your diet. And pretty much, well, not all fat, but for example, lard got a hugely bad rap. But if you take a close look at the composition of lard, it's no worse for you than butter is. And a little butter won't kill you. A lot of butter will. It's, we truly don't eat or cook like the French, who believe in really good food and great ingredients in small portions.
It's funny you would mention the things that you're mentioning, because I just watched I told you I watch a lot of food TV shows. I love food TV shows. I just watched and first the one I couldn't remember was Jose Andreas. I couldn't remember.
Oh, yes. Okay.
I love Jose. Like Jose Andreas is on that level of Guy Fieri for taking care of the human race. But I just watched Angry Man. What's the angry one that's always cussing the English guy? The one that's Hell's Kitchen.
Oh God, yes. Who actually has a 3-star Michelin restaurant in his real life? Yes.
But I was watching his road show going across the country with his best friends. It was a Frenchman and an Italian, and it was so interesting to me to watch the dynamics of people who haven't been here. Have you ever been to Albany, David?
I have, as a matter of fact.
Have you ever had the tiny hot dogs?
Oh, I know what you're talking about, and I haven't. What are they called?
They're just tiny hot dogs. It's hot dogs. So for people who've heard me talk about it, they're little tiny hot dogs that we have up here in Albany, and they're on a little tiny bun with the meat sauce and the cheese and everything. They're actually amazing. Mm-hmm. And there's like we have a Pat.
Well, it's like a
level rivalry with places. It's great.
You got to get. I need details on that because I'm actually doing a chapter on hot dogs.
Oh yeah. Will you come up here?
So Dales would be important.
You come up here.
You're frozen on me, Sean.
I think we froze on each other. Are we back?
Okay. Well, there we are.
So
yeah, you're back. I'm back.
We're back, but we'll have to do it because, like, up here you have Famous Lunch, Gus's, Hot Dog Charlie's, and it's like this whole thing. And normally it's like Gus's and Hot Dog Charlie's. I'm a Famous Lunch guy. Like, Famous Lunch is like the libertarian party of this whole thing.
So if I come up to Albany for the book, you'll drive me around. You can be my guide.
100%.
Okay. Deal. The deal. We'll work that out.
We will work that out. And Jeanette says, I upped my gravy game after reading Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidentials, Butter and Shallot. Look, there it is right there. That is my spirit animal, is Anthony Bourdain. Like, I love Anthony. He's just one of those what was a TV character, and we've talked about it on the show many times. Probably the only TV personality that ever passed away, and I actually gave a shit.
Yeah, it was interesting to watch his evolution from before he was on TV, hating television, being pretty verbal about how food television was crap, and then ending up doing it, but doing it his way.
He was impressive.
Yes.
God, just one of those kind of guys. Now, is there any city that you've been to, and this might be any city you've been to where you're like, don't waste your time? They're just like,
No. There's
like, I can tell you, I can name you one. I can
what?
name you one.
Where?
And here's the problem with it, and it's where I will probably retire at.
Uh-oh.
But the food scene does not exist, and it's because of you're this will make you crazy. The food scene doesn't exist because of the census. You ever heard that before? So Jacksonville, North Carolina is where Camp Lejeune is. You can find every single chain popular restaurant from any community across the country in this city. It doesn't now you get outside of it and you can get real crackling outside of it. You can go down to Wilmington and get amazing food. You can go out to Surf City.
You're going to tell me nowhere in that entire town is somebody doing barbecue worth it?
No, Mission Barbecue, but you can get Mission Barbecue in Maryland.
No, I'm not talking about a chain, but
no. And if it's there, somebody send me a message. And Cheryl, absolutely, because another great personality. Somebody feed Phil. I've watched all those. He was a writer for
he was the showrunner for
Seinfeld, right?
Raymond. Everybody loves Raymond. Yeah,
but I love
Ray Romano.
I love that show too. Somebody feed Phil. But I'm promising you that there's no good food that somebody is doing that it's like, oh, I can't get this anywhere else. Like,
okay,
it doesn't exist.
Well, that's a damn shame, is what it is. Because I have yet to find, and I'm sure they exist, I've yet to find myself in a town where somebody didn't know about something local that was good. Now, define good. You mentioned North Carolina. There's a place that did, we put them on diners. They did little tiny hamburgers. And were they the greatest hamburgers in the world? No, but they were unique and they tasted good and they were done that same way this owner did them for 8 billion years. That to me is legit food. If someone is trying hard to do it by hand, I'll cut them a little slack if it's not the best thing I've ever eaten. I remember this is not an oxymoron. The wife of, here it comes, you'll think this is an oxymoron, the wife of Germany's leading food critic, which he really was. His name was Wolfram Ziebeck. He wrote for, I think Spiegel, might have been Stern. Anyway, he was on a crusade to turn Germans on to, basically French cuisine. But we were shooting a piece with him, and I mentioned in passing to his wife that because of the time difference between Europe and the U.S., after we finished sending stories to New York, to my disappointment, there was often nothing available to eat but McDonald's. And she just about beat the crap out of me, insisting that I could have bought a baguette and some meat and cheese earlier in the day, and that going to McDonald's was a crime. And in that context, she was probably right. But
now you've done and it's funny when you're talking about Europe and your time you spent over there with ABC,
NBC
or NBC, excuse me.
That's right.
I've run into this. God, who I was just talking. It might have been my boss I was just talking to about this. So I was in Corfu in Greece, one of the Greek islands.
Right.
And I had the most amazing gyros over there. Just amazing. But they were the size.
Yeah, because they're made out of actual meat. They're not made out of that processed stuff.
And they're the size of a damn taquiza.
Yeah.
They're not these massive, monstrous things. What's your experience with that? With your travels and with writing a book like this, Food Americana, which, folks, you can find it on Amazon. You can find it on all your major platforms. Check your grandma's closet. She's probably secretly reading a copy of it. You need to check everywhere for Food Americana. And we're going to do the hot dog chapter. We're going to add Albany to the hot dog chapter because I think it's worth it. The little mini dogs, because they're not like little schnitzels or whatever you want to call them, but they're like actual hot dogs. But what has been your experience with that type of stuff where here in America, it's like the giant plate thing? Like you went to Spain, the tapia, the little small
Tapas.
dishes, tapas.
Yeah.
Thank you. The small dishes. What has been your experience with that?
Well, look, we have insanely large portions in the United States. And I haven't studied the etymology of it enough to claim expertise. I will tell you that everywhere else I've gone in the world, and that's Europe, Africa, the Middle East, I did not do Asia, absent one trip to Hong Kong. The size of American portions is astonishing. Now, I will posit one fact from my book, which is, first of all, my premise is that we made an American cuisine out of the cuisines of other countries and cultures. And that when they came here, first of all, any cuisine evolves over time. Secondly, we modified those cuisines to our tastes and our available ingredients. When very poor Italian peasants came to the United States from Naples in the 1800s, they found a world of food that was completely different from what they were used to, in that it was available to them. The reason pizza was associated with Naples was, well, first of all, they had the ingredients, but there was a population of poor people there who couldn't afford anything more than a basic flatbread with some tomato on top. If they were lucky, if they had any money at all, they could add a piece of lard or a sardine. When they got to the United States, one of the things that this group of immigrants was astonished by was the fact that even in poverty, working man's poverty,
Right.
they could afford meat. Meat was not available to them back in Naples. For the most part, they couldn't even afford pasta except on Sunday. So it makes perfect sense that the portion size on Italian food in the United States became insane. You're used to heaping plates of spaghetti and meatballs, a dish that didn't even exist in Italy, or pizzas that are piled high with ingredients, or very famous Sunday sauce, the pasta sauce that, as opposed to being just marinara, is now filled with pork or veal or beef or all three, and the Italian term for abundance being abbondanza. That's one example that is one potential factor in the size of our foods. I would guess that another was the period of relative economic and societal wonderfulness, happiness that came after the Second World War. Now, certainly America's minority groups were not included in that, but for white America, that was a period of optimism and growth, and the GI Bill, and people could afford on one salary to move to the suburbs and have a great house. And there was this sense of, we have more of everything than anyone. When Khrushchev came over, he had a debate with Nixon on, it wasn't planned, in the kitchen exhibit of it may have been a World's Fair, but the argument being, we have more of everything than anyone else. And I would suspect that played a role in it. But yes, portions in the United States are criminally large, and they're part of the reason that we have such an obesity problem.
I can't even argue with any of that. And you're getting so many, I have to tell you, because food is close to the heart. It goes back to that old saying of the fastest way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Cheryl, who is our number one sponsor, and I got to go ahead and where'd my phone go? I have to take a moment here, and we're going to take a little bit of a break as I get ready to read all these amazing comments. But if everyone has been looking, you saw David's amazing mug shots today and all the different things. They are sponsor. They are from our sponsor, Media by Dibble. Media by Dibble, your connection for all things media, from logos, marketing campaigns to flyers and more. Making your ideas a reality. Mention the phrase "belly up to the bar" for 10% off your first order and for a free consultation. So if you're looking for something, maybe here's what we're gonna have to do, David. Here's what we're gonna have to do. When you come to Albany, we'll
Yes.
send we'll send over to Andrew pictures of
Hmm.
us tiny hot dogs, and he can make like special promotional photos for us.
I'm in, dude.
We're doing that. That's so
You know,
happening.
my favorite food in East Berlin was kind of a hot dog. They sold Weisswurst under the elevated train tracks. It's a little white sausage made mostly of veal, I think. And the only place I could get those was in East Berlin. So you had to go through Checkpoint Charlie, and they
For
checked your
real
car
checkpoint.
for stowaways. And then the first place I would go was.
So was this like the legit
Yes, spot.
checkpoint,
Yeah,
Charlie?
so I'm in on hot dogs. The
Like
real
the
one, yeah.
legit, real.
Yeah.
Wow. So and Andrew's wife is Cheryl. She says Andrew agrees with me that he lived in Jacksonville for 3 years. There's just not. It's not there.
Well,
It's
let's
so
go
sad.
down there and start a barbecue restaurant.
Bro, you could do it. I'm telling you. And then Scott Hoffman, who's a buddy of mine from high school, he's a big traveler, constantly posting pictures. He's all over the place, and he says
He's
where
right.
he likes to talk to the locals and ask them where would they take their friends to eat at. And he's never not found. You want to know where the best Mexican food I've ever had on
Where?
this planet? It's gonna.
Mhm.
You ever heard of Willard, Ohio?
No.
Exactly. The
Where
only
is
thing.
Willard, Ohio?
Well, it's in Ohio. It's like 30 minutes
Oh,
north of Columbus. Um,
mhm.
the only thing there is CSX trains, meth, and car dealerships. That's it. That's all that exists there. And this amazing, and God, I hope he's still there. The gentleman used to make what I called a Mexican cheesesteak. I don't know what
Okay.
else to call it. It was this amazing, very authentic Mexican bread, and he would like do the peppers and the meat and the sausage and stuff this thing.
Well,
David, it was amazing.
people don't know. You say Mexican bread. People think the only starch used in Mexican cuisine is a tortilla, when
Oh
in
God,
fact, when the Spaniards invaded, they brought wheat with them, and it was a sign of culture to have wheat-based bread in central Mexico at that time. By the way, one of the graphics up here, your last commenter talked about asking locals where they eat. That works unless you aren't specific enough. The first time I ever went to Vienna, after we fed our story to New York, I asked the local drivers, the guys we worked with every time we went there, but this was my first trip. I said, "Take me, please, where you guys like to eat." So they took me to a Texas barbecue joint.
fair enough. Jeanette thinks we have cheese on everything,
Mm-mm.
but
Not
Scott,
on pasta with seafood.
no, and Scott's defending it. He says, "Jeanette, stay away from my cheese."
Yeah, okay, fine.
And then we have Jeanette again. I told you she wants to know, David. Have you
I
ever
love
experienced
kippers.
kippers?
Kippers. Oh, I'm sorry, I got to read. Have you ever experienced kippers?
I've never had.
Especially
What is
from-
it? It's a
It's
fish,
a
right?
fish. Look, I'm a New York Jew. I mean, the concept of smoked fish for breakfast is in my DNA. Now, kippers, I don't think are kippers smoked. They may be. They're usually with a full English breakfast. My sense is that they're fried, but I could be wrong. Yes, kippers are great. Kippers are fabulous.
I love lox and bagels with a little piece of salmon on there.
Yeah,
Well, onion.
there's
There's
a renaissance now in lox and bagels. After, go ahead.
I don't get it. Like so, my mom worked for a family called the Atmans,
Mhm.
and the Atman Deli in Baltimore is the oldest continuously run business in Baltimore and the oldest family. It's called Atman's Deli. It's in Baltimore City,
Right?
and they are all about it. And that's and Jeanette says that they are smoked or and poached. I don't get poached. Isn't
Poached
poached
is
basically boiled?
basically boiled. I mean, I think technically, if you're better at it than I am, you come to right below the boiling point. But when I poach salmon, it ends up bubbling. So, I'm not that good.
You and me both. I can't do the poach. So now we talked about the city that didn't have anything.
Right.
Now this is what's your I gotta go here, Sid. Like somebody says, hey, the comet is coming. They're gonna end us all. We're doing a dinosaur. You get this opportunity to go to one city for the last week because you know there's gonna be a lot of food there. What's
Madrid.
your Madrid? But you didn't even let me finish. You knew Madrid.
Madrid. I mean, look, I can give you all of the yes, Rome is wonderful. Yes, Paris is wonderful. Marseille, despite being a dump, is incredible. But in terms of, I once, while drunk, tried to buy a Mexican restaurant in Marseille. That's the whole other story. Dragged me out. I consummated the deal. I just love the Spanish combination of Mediterranean and their heavy reliance on incredible pork. And I think that variety and also the style of eating, which is not only tapas, but it's an incredible, there's an incredible culture built around food there, built around variety of food. And there is no finer single piece of food than Yamone Iberico, the
What is that?
Spanish ham. It's ham from a Spanish pig, but it's a special pig that has at the high end of this item grazed only on acorns, and,
Really?
and it tastes liver in the fat, and it's sliced extremely thin, and it's just astonishing. So yeah, I'd go to Spain. I mean, there's plenty of other places too. If the world is going to end more than once, it depends what you want. The most probably the most remarkable city for food that I've ever been to is Hong Kong, because Hong Kong is New York on steroids. It has all of the ethnic variety in food, plus all of the, to an American, exotic culinary culture of real Chinese food. Real's a terrible word. I shouldn't have said that. Chinese food as eaten in China, as opposed to Chinese American food, which evolved from Chinese food as eaten in China. I don't want to, it's very important in my mind not to diminish the American variation of a culture's food, because what we have is ours now, and that's something else. But no, in terms of let's just walk out and get a great meal from God knows where, Hong Kong will blow your mind.
Now,
We were,
mine's
go ahead.
Atlanta.
What?
Are you serious?
I'm leaving. I'm sorry. Atlanta?
Are you serious? You don't stop.
Well, look, I lived in Atlanta in the early 80s. I understand it has changed since then. I understand it even has a Rodney Scott's barbecue now. So I am open to it. But
Fox Brothers barbecue is incredible. It's mind-boggling.
I have read both good and bad about Fox Brothers.
There's like a couple of different taco places that are incredible.
There's the Varsity.
The Varsity is amazing. If you've never been to Varsity, the Varsity is amazing. The special Chick-fil-A is there that I've talked about many times on this show that mind boggles people. A Chick-fil-A that serves burgers, which is Chick-fil-A Dwarf House. And my favorite pizza place that I tell everyone about is in Atlanta. The best pizza you will ever have. New York City ain't got shit on this pizza. Chicago, none of them.
I'm sorry, I've eaten a pizza
I've eaten in
Napolitano in
Naples.
Naples.
I've had Naples.
I believe the pizza in Naples is the best I've ever had. And
Antico,
next to that is the pizza made by Tony Gemignani in San Francisco.
You have to have Antico pizza.
Okay, I'll have it. Well, I have a friend, friends, a man and woman, they're married, who are moving from Michigan to Atlanta, and I suspect we'll head down there. But if you want to send me a list of where I should go, the trip I'm looking forward to is in December. I have a business trip to Charleston, and eating my way through Charleston is something that's on my bucket list.
So my son was in the Coast Guard and was stationed there.
Mm-hmm.
And we went down to visit him, and I couldn't tell you the places we ate at. I definitely went through Zomato, the app, and just was like finding places.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, Jeanette, we do have an amazing pizza place here in Albany. So you have to come when you come up.
I'm coming up. We'll eat.
When you come up, well, we might have to hit the Fazio. So you know the guy from Barstool Pizza, the Barstool guy that does the pizza.
Yeah,
he went to our DeFazio's and gave DeFazio's like an 8.3 or something like that.
Not bad.
And I don't know his rating system. I don't know the guy, but everybody was like, "This is incredible." But
part of the thing with pizza, though, and I'm kind of a stickler on this, is an awful lot of people these days are claiming to serve particular styles of pizza and not getting it right. Detroit pizza is all over the place now, badly.
What is Detroit pizza?
Detroit pizza is a rectangular pizza. It was originally made in liberated oil or tool trays in Detroit. The trays were liberated from either an auto parts plant or an auto factory. Anyway, it's got cheese all the way around the crust, sauce on top. It's become kind of the thing over the past few years. The guy who made it popular, Sean Randazzo of the Detroit Pizza Company, tragically passed away a year or so after I talked to him for my last book. But even the chains are doing Detroit now, and they're not doing it well. Everybody and his brother claims to do pizza Napolitano. Well, the fact of the matter is, done properly, pizza Napolitano is not crisp, and it's even soupy in the middle, and that's the right way to do it. And if you don't like it that way, then don't have it. But you know, it just, if you're offering me something particular, I want it to be that thing. You know, we see that in barbecue now, because barbecue used to be very regional. You had to go to the Carolinas to get one of those tangy sauces. You had to go to Kansas City for burnt ends. You had to go to Memphis for Memphis ribs. You had to go to Central Texas for brisket. And there's a great food writer / historian whose name escapes me embarrassingly at the moment, but he has referred to the places that are now putting all of these kinds of barbecue together on the same menu as the International House of Barbecue. And you're seeing that all across the country. On the one hand, I guess it's good if I want Memphis ribs that I can get them where I am. But A, it takes the mystique out of it. And B, I doubt there are a lot of places doing it as well as they do it in Memphis. But yeah, as one old barbecue owner told me, it might have been the owner of Big Bob Gibson's, but I'm not sure, said there's a lot of shitty barbecue out there. And he's not opposed to the concept either. Big Bob Gibson's is famous for their white barbecue sauce. And he said, look, I see it all over the country now. On the other hand, that white barbecue sauce is not hard to make. He gave me the recipe for Food Americana. So, if you got 6 ingredients, you can make his sauce. But the point is, whatever you claim a particular food to be, make it that. Or rename it. If you want to do it your way, call it Sean's Barbecue. That's fine. You know, whatever you want. But I'm big, and look, this fights my acknowledgement that food evolves. But when it evolves, I'd like to give it a different name.
Now, I'm telling you, this is probably, I got to tell you right now, David, some of the best listener involvement that we've had in a
Great.
while. People, because food, I really think, is an emotional thing. Depending upon
Completely.
how you grew up, when we celebrate, we eat. When we're sad, we're eat. It was, I grew up in a very, with a name like mine, you would think it was a very Irish household. It wasn't.
What was it?
My grandmother was the first person in our family born here from Sicily. So when
Oh,
you
so
talked
you
about those
have
sauces,
some food in your background.
so like when you were talking about those sauces, I can remember my grandmother would make the sauce and it would have meatballs, ribs, and sausage in it, and it would soak all day long, and it was the most amazing thing. And I still have her recipe somewhere in my
Oh,
safe. It's in the safe for Spanish olives. She would do the Spanish olives and she would
oh,
roll them and crack the skin, put olive oil and red pepper
oh.
and stuff on them and let them soak. And you would eat them. And if you've never had Spanish olives that way, folks, with where they're rolled and you crack the skin and then you put the olive oil on them and the crushed red pepper, it's amazing. But like Scott's over here talking about his favorite taco place in LA is Los Tacos in Midtown, near.
What makes it so good?
We'll have to, Scott, you heard the question. What makes it so good? Jeanette, who we love our Jeanette, what is your most favorite Americanized version of an ethnic food? Does that
Me?
make sense? Like, yeah. So what is yours?
My most favorite Americanized version of an ethnic food. This is going to be boring, but it's General Cho's chicken, which is a heart attack on a plate. It is everything that Americans want. It's crunchy, it's greasy, it's sweet, and in those, especially the sweetness, it is nothing like the General Cho's chicken that was invented by a chef in Taiwan after he escaped mainland China after the revolution. There's a great documentary on this, by the way, In Search of General Cho,
What's it
written
about?
done by Jennifer 8 Lee. The number is her middle name. I think 8 is lucky in the Chinese culture. She also wrote a book about Chinese food in America. I don't recall the title of it. It was very helpful to me in research, but her name is Jennifer 8 Lee, and she is an expert on a lot of this. And she tells the story. She went back to Taiwan and found the chef who who created this dish, and she showed him a picture of what was passing for General Cho's chicken in the United States. He nearly jumped off a bridge. On the other hand, it is a perfect example of a food that has evolved to bear almost no relationship to its antecedent that I would eat nonstop. I mean, it's phenomenal.
Now, now this is kind of based on that question, and I hope I'm wording this right. And if I'm not, I'm going to use your well-educated self, and I got to agree with Andrew, Scott. Yes, there's a lot of shitty barbecue, and Andrew with the fact that this is amazing interaction. Is Do you find it kind of a get over it when certain cultures get upset that their food has been Americanized, or people have adopted it in new ways?
It's,
Because I
you know
think
what, it's less people of a certain culture than it is that group of foodies who are into it only to be cool, not because of their love of food. And when it rains,
cheers.
when it rains, when it rains, they drown because their noses are up in the air. I
Thank
think
you.
the more legitimate conversation is about the concept of appropriation. What is appropriation? I do not have a problem with someone who is not of a particular ethnic group studying and making that ethnic food with respect for where it came from, with deference to those who made it first and earlier, with acknowledgement that it is of another culture and this is an homage. There are a number of people in the food world. I mean, Rick Bayless was criticized for appropriating Mexican food, although if you look at his writing, he was pretty transparent in acknowledging that he didn't invent this and it came from someplace else. I think what got him in trouble was the sense that as a white American, he was the prophet of Mexican food in America. I mean, Andrew Zimmern got in trouble, and rightfully so, when he was quoted saying that he was going to save the Midwest from shitty Chinese food, as if he, Andrew Zimmern, was a Chinese food expert, which I'm sure he's eaten in Asia a lot, but I don't think as a white American you have a right to wear the mantle of teaching America how to eat Chinese food. I mean, look, appropriation is a difficult argument, a difficult conversation. I don't particularly mind the fact that McDonald's and Dunkin' Donuts sell bagels. I don't think they have stolen my Jewish heritage in doing so.
That's a perfect example. Everyone thinks they do a bagel and forget where the bagel comes from.
Well, yeah, look, the bagel came from Jews in Poland. And Maria Bolinska, who has written a book called The Bagel, which is pretty much the definitive history of the bagel. And one of the reasons it's so good is she speaks fluent Polish. So she was able to go over there and actually understand the records. The bagel was ours, and then it came here, and then an interesting thing happened to the bagel. First of all, it changed. It evolved like any other dish. It became bigger and less crunchy. But then a very interesting thing happens in large metropolitan areas. Not many, but in the biggest metropolitan areas in the United States that have been the recipients of tremendous amounts of immigration from various places, ethnic foods become local foods. New York adopted the bagel as a New York thing after it was first a Jewish thing. New York adopts a lot of stuff. The bagel went national, however, when a couple of Jewish guys acknowledged that the Jewish bagel would not sell in mostly non-Jewish mid-America. I'm talking about the Lender brothers of Lender's Bagels. I talked to Marvin, who's still with us, and a really great guy.
How old is he?
When I interviewed him, he was 78, so he's 79, 80.
I thought they were older than that, Lender's Bagels.
No. He joined the business straight out of college. The business that had been started by his father. And he had two other brothers who are already in the business. Marvin's the youngest of the three, and then one of them left. But the bottom line is the New York Jewish bagel could not be distributed throughout the country because it had a half-life of like a day, if that. What happened was the guy who invented the rolling ping pong table, the one you fold up and put away, invented the automatic bagel making machine. Now, yeah, the Lenders leased the first one. There is a great dispute. His sons, the Thompson brothers, insist that their machine could handle any thickness of dough, that it's not their fault the bagels got lighter. They contend that it was the other equipment that was used to prepare the dough to go into their machine that required the dough to be thinner. Anyway, you ended up, and Marvin insists that through the mechanized process, it had to be a waterier dough. So you ended up, number two, very intentionally, the flavor and level of crunch changed. Because, as Marvin said, I couldn't sell this in the middle of America. And this happened just as freezing was becoming a cool thing. So they were making massive amounts of bagels on their automatic equipment when no one else had it freezing the bagels, and then selling them to grocery stores all over the country. They also began the concept of flavored bagels, cinnamon raisin and all of the other options. Because up to that point, I'm extrapolating from my own knowledge here, but I would think that you didn't even have everything bagels back then. You had plain bagels and sesame bagels.
I'm about to say, something minor.
Yeah. So that's what got the bagel to become American. It's not a New York Jewish bagel. What's happening now, and has been happening for a number of years, that's fascinating, is just as there is a renaissance in artisan pizza or artisan hamburgers, there is a renaissance underway in artisan bagels, which are now being made by hand the old-fashioned way in places like Kansas City. And with that, in many bakeries or delis, you now see artisan smoked salmon, and all, they're upscaling all of the dishes attendant to bagels, lox, and cream cheese. Although what's interesting is, bagels and lox were never consumed in Europe, because in Europe, Jews didn't have smoked salmon or brine salmon. It wasn't a dish. It only became available. Now, the Jews of Eastern and Central Europe were used to eating smoked fish, but not salmon. And when they got to the States, they would eat smoked fish, especially cheap smoked fish. But when the Transcontinental Railroad was completed in the 1800s, it suddenly made it possible to ship salmon from the Pacific Northwest to New York. But they hadn't invented refrigeration for train cars yet. So to preserve the salmon on this 3,000-mile trip, they would pack it in copious amounts of salt. The salt would brine it. Brine salmon is lox. And as Mel Brooks told me, it was expensive. We could only have it once a week on a Sunday. Yes, Mel Brooks. You've heard of Mel Brooks. He's a professional. Yeah, no, I asked him. I asked his people, does he want to?
Hold on.
I haven't met him. I've been on the
Mel Brooks.
No, I wanted to talk about lox and bagels. Now, who talks more about growing up Jewish than Mel Brooks?
Well, right,
so
right.
I asked his production company, would he talk to me? He agreed to. So we got on the phone and he said, look, we can only afford it once a week on a Sunday, but when times got better, we could also have it on Tuesday.
Listen to me for a moment here, David.
Yeah.
When you talked to Mel Brooks, you had a conversation. He was a beautiful
He was great.
Man. He's great. He was amazing.
Wonderful.
Did he have velvet on? Did it look like a velvet
I don't know.
suit?
It was a phone. It wasn't Zoom.
Look at this. Hey.
I almost broke into a chorus of Springtime for Hitler.
Oh, God. How great would that be? Nothing better than sitting down and making people watch Blazing Saddles who don't understand it.
Or the producers. Yeah. The thing, one of the things I brought.
History of the world.
One of the things I brought to the writing process is a vestige of, I spent many years as an investigative journalist. I actually ran the investigative unit at 2020. And the key to much of investigative work is just ask. All they can say is no. I interviewed Cecilia Chang, the most important person in the history of Chinese food in America, in her apartment in San Francisco. She was 100 at the time. She has since passed away. But I asked, and she said, sure. She went in at one point, and she was a great, what a sophisticated woman. She's 100 years old. She's wearing pearls, gray sweater, darker gray slacks. Her apartment overlooks San Francisco. At one point, we're talking about her restaurant, the Mandarin, which really changed Chinese food in America. She goes into the other room. She comes back and takes out of a manila envelope the original menu with strike-throughs and written additions in ballpoint pen. I mean,
wow,
that was pretty cool.
That's amazing, because I know exactly who you're talking about. I told you, I'm a junkie for this. It's kind of one of those things that my wife at some point always looks at me and goes, "Do we have to watch another food show?
Yeah.
Do we have?"
Well, by the way, Have you watched Stanley Tucci's show on CNN?
No,
Stanley
no.
Tucci's Italy. He goes to Italy, where his parents or grandparents are from. He speaks Italian, and he
Okay.
eats his way region by region through much of Italy. It was on CNN. They probably have it online somewhere. It's amazing, absolutely amazing.
David, you and I think could sit here and this is one of those shows that like will never fall off. If we could do about 10 of these, I have to ask you because we're going to get ready to wrap it up soon. I'm going to tell you
Okay,
my favorite sandwich in the world. Again,
okay.
people who listen to my show know I'm a food whore. There's a fat kid that lives in my soul. He wants to eat everything. There's
He's
nothing
trying
I'm
to
not.
burst out.
There's only one food I won't eat, which is urchin, and I've tried it 3 times, and all 3 times it sucked.
It's a
I
little
just
rough.
it's one of those ones where, like, if you eat sea urchin, you're like, "This is amazing." You're a
No, it's
liar.
not. No, it's not.
It's not. Have you ever been to a little town in France called Toulon?
Toulon?
Toulon.
No, no. Tell
So
me.
Toulon is a port city.
Hmm.
I remember being in the Marine Corps, getting off the boat. Our ship was so far back that they actually had to shuttle us to the front gate. When you walked out the front gate, you
Right.
looked to the right, and there was a French Foreign Legion recruiting office that they told us to stay away from because they didn't want none of us dumbasses. I'll go be a French Foreign Legion. They'll protect me,
That'll work.
you know. But they would have, and if you ever get a chance, and you can look this up, there, and if you look it up, it'll actually pop. Somebody was on the show one day and looked it up. They were called smash sandwiches.
What are
And
they?
what it is it's this French bread, good French bread. Um, and they would put whatever protein you want, chicken, burger, whatever you want, lettuce, tomato, the most amazing. And I've told this story. French mustard that the first time I had, I was like, that's a good spice. The second time I said, add a little extra in there. And I bit into my sandwich and my nose ran and my eyes watered. It was just so spicy. I was like, this is amazing. I love every minute. I love all this. It's great. Um, and then they would put your French fries on there. And at that point, the sandwich was about 3 to 4 inches tall. And it was not a panini press, it was a flat press that they would put the sandwich in and lock it down. And when it came out, it was maybe an inch tall and it was wrapped in paper, and you were half in the bag already. And they would hand it to you, and it was these beautiful French girls that were standing in there, and there was like 4 of them in like a square, like it didn't make any difference which one you went to, but you're a dumbass, so you pick which girl you want to. You're young Marines. You're like, she's hotter than the last one. I'm gonna go ahead and go over there. But none of it mattered. But I promise you, these smash sandwiches by far, and I listen to me. I've had poor boys in New Orleans. I tell people all the time when they're like, I lived out of Philadelphia, and they're like, well, what's the best sandwich, best cheesesteak in Philadelphia? And I tell them all the time, what neighborhood did you live in? Pat and Gino's is garbage. No one in Philadelphia eats Pat and Gino's. Growing up in Baltimore, a crab cake needs to be broiled with saltines and yellow mustard, or go get a pit beef sandwich. I've had amazing food.
Champs pit beef.
What neighborhood are you in? Pit beef is Chaps is the big place, but what
Right.
neighborhood are you in? We used to have a spot when my parents owned a liquor store and a bar that had a pit beef stand right next to it, and the guy used to like beg my dad, like, "Hey, can I put a stand up here?" Absolutely, my uncle used to make it. It's one of those things. I've had sandwiches I've had a Cuban in Key West, Florida, a good golf swing from Cuba. Toulon, France, smash sandwich is a frigging game changer. If
I will put that on my list, sir.
David, so now that's my sandwich. Like that's my
Well, hold
and
on.
like
Let me just point out my favorite sandwich:
please, that's what I want to hear.
lox bagel and cream cheese from Russ and Daughters on the Lower East Side.
What's it called? Russian Daughters?
Russ and Daughters.
Oh,
Joel Russ only had daughters, and incredibly, They took over the business, and now it's run by the next generation. It's almost 110 years old.
Best lox and bagels. What makes it the best lox? Like, I know what makes that smash.
Okay, there's
makes it
two
best?
things. Number one, the quality of the lox, and by the way, for the most part, we're talking smoked salmon, which is smoked, as opposed to lox, which is brined and salty, and which can be terrific. But if you get lox, don't get an everything or a salt bagel, because there's a ton of salt in it. What makes it special is that they and Barney Greengrass and maybe Zabar's get the cream of the crop from Acme, the largest supplier of smoked fish in America, and they get theirs from Acme's plant in Brooklyn, which I visited to do this. So they're getting the best. Number two, there's a particular expertise in how you slice it. I was allowed for the book to get behind the counter at Russ and Daughters and try to slice smoked salmon, and I turned it into mush. It's a counter. First of all, it's a long blade. It's very flexible, and it's counterintuitive. When you think you should be going down, you should be going up against. It's impossible. So if the lox is sliced properly to the point where you can almost see through it, that's perfection. Now, number two, Russ and Daughters started making their own bagels a year or two ago, and I think their bagels are terrific. So. And they get, some insanely cream cheese from. To me, that is the death row meal.
See, so let's go ahead and make this deal right now. I'm going to cut a deal with you right now, David. We've got the connections with TV. You make amazing books. I'm a complete ass, and I love to eat, and I have a big opinion of things. The next TV show is me and you. It's me and you eating our way across every ethnic food we can find.
If we can sell it to Netflix, I'm in, big boy.
If we we'll go to DC for Ethiopian, because that's big Ethiopian.
Excellent. There. Probably pick up a half smoke while we're there.
We can smoke.
I mean, you're close to Ben's. You might as well stop in.
You might as well. We can stop and we'll go to what is it in Philadelphia, Larice's, another great slice of pizza, or Lorenzo's. Excuse me, not Larice's, Lorenzo's. No toppings, just a big ass slice of cheese pizza.
Well, we'll also go to John's for a roast pork and broccolini sandwich. See, the out of towners. Yeah, the out of towners eat cheesesteak. The Philadelphians eat roast pork.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Philly's only 90 miles away.
Johnson pork roll.
Well, you got pork roll or Taylor ham. It kind of depends.
Taylor ham.
Yeah.
Folks, for those of you that are sticking with us right now, we just got two mid-Atlantic kids just talking about shit we like to eat.
Yeah, pretty much. What's wrong with that?
Like breakfast at my house.
Yeah.
Growing up as a kid, glass of milk and a peanut butter candy cake from Tasty Cakes.
Oh, in the freezer?
I don't like mine frozen.
I keep mine in the freezer.
No, I need mine super soft and mushy.
No, in the freezer.
It needs to be soft and mushy.
Okay, well, there's obviously a difference of opinion here, and I'm right.
Have you ever had the candy the Boston cream pie? It's the Candy Claire. It's like a Boston cream pie with graham cracker crust. Oh my god, it's a graham cracker crust with the Boston cream filling and the chocolate stripe.
Ooh,
it's look, and Scott already named our show. I would subscribe to two mid-Atlantic kids talking food. That's the name of the show.
Great. This is like on Amazon. You can pre-order by sending us a check for $1,500, Scott, and we'll keep it in escrow until the show's on the air. And tell your friends, okay?
We might have to do a Kickstarter or something like that. But I think this is perfect. You know the writing side of this. I know I can eat this shit and I don't care. I'll blow up like a tick on a dog's ass.
Well, no, but we have to go north too because we got to have whole belly clams and lobster rolls.
See that I'm all about it. I want to go. See, I want to go out to Minnesota and, like you said, hot dish, which the rest of us call casserole. I want to do that. There's so much food. I got an RV, Dave.
Do you?
Already.
See, my wife wants to get an RV, and I keep saying I don't like toilets with blue water.
Don't put it. Mine doesn't have blue water.
Okay, fine.
Different type.
I just got back from Minnesota. I was at the state fair there.
That's a
over
great
the past weekend. I was looking at state fair food for my next book, and we had hot dish on a stick.
Hot dish on a stick. What is that?
Here's what it was. It's a stick, and alternating, it's a small meatball and a tater tot, a small meatball and a tater tot, and a small meatball. And then it's dipped in corn batter and deep fried, and you dip it in kind of like a mushroom sauce. It sounds disgusting.
No, it wasn't.
It was great.
But again, I'm going to go back to Atlanta for a minute. Palookaville in Atlanta, Georgia, if it's still there, you used to do custom corn dogs. You could pick from Italian sausage, whatever you wanted, and the batter, and they would make it. And then they had adult milkshakes. So it was like
there's a lot to be said for adult milkshakes.
Like so Dave, I mean, at this point, I'm going to call you Dave now. We're past David.
Fine.
I'm on to Dave.
That's okay.
There's so many great names for this show that we could come up with, none of which I'm going to say right now because I don't know anybody who's listening. They'd be like, mix something, and we'd be like, oh my God, he said something horrible to Dave.
Oh no.
But
we're fine.
This is an adult conversation from two guys who grew up in neighborhoods where you better have a little bit of chutzpah or you're going to, it could be a bad day.
Yeah. But the classic definition of chutzpah.
What is the classic definition?
Killing your mother and father and then throwing yourself on the mercy of the court because you're an orphan.
What are the two brothers that did that?
Scott Peterson.
Yes, but it takes a lot of chutzpah.
No, it wasn't Scott Peterson. It was.
I know you're talking about.
You know who I'm talking about.
I know who you're talking about.
A friend of mine did a big thing on him. Yeah.
So again, this is another example of why David and I would be so amazing because there's never a name that's getting mentioned. Do you know the guy? You know the guy? I know the guy. You know the guy? It's the one guy.
I know the guy. You know the guy? Did the guy do that? Yeah, he's the guy.
The Menendez brothers.
Yes, the Menendez brothers. Thank you, Scott.
Jeanette got it, and Scott got it. So I'm putting this on you because you've got the connections. If you can, so we've talked about this. We're gonna have a chapter in the book about hot dogs. So if the hot dog I don't care if the hot dog chapter goes great. You and I,
it's gonna go great.
And my wife would be more than happy to watch me leave.
I don't know. In the middle of this, my wife brought me another drink, so I'm good.
I will tell you, as much as Jeanette is my number one fan, my bride is my number one supporter. She actually sent me a message before the show started. Let me know if you need anything. She lets me do this.
Ain't that nice?
It is nice, but we've gotta because. I could keep going with this because I'm just thinking of like
Sean, I'm in.
It just came to mind. Like, what's your favorite? I know for me, what's your favorite ethnic food that you didn't grow up with that you discovered as an adult? For me, it's Indian.
Peruvian.
I've had Peruvian. You know where there's an amazing Peruvian restaurant?
Where?
Not far from you.
By the way, I interrupted you. What is your favorite that you didn't?
It's Indian. Indian. I love Indian food. Indian and Thai. It's probably pretty close.
But here's the thing on Thai: Southern Thai or Northern Thai?
You know what? I don't know the
difference. Northern Thai, which most Americans don't know, is an extraordinary cuisine, heavily based on meat, especially spicy sausage and chicken wings. And most Thai restaurants in the U.S. where you get pad Thai, that sort of thing, that's Southern Thai. I discovered Northern Thai. There's a restaurant in a strip mall in Vegas that when I was doing things for Al Roker's production company, he had a show called Roker on the Road. We went there to cover a place in a strip mall that had been declared by one of the hoity-toity magazines the best Thai food in North America. And it was. And years later, I went back with my wife, and it's extraordinary. And we had a favorite Northern Thai restaurant just through the Lincoln Tunnel in Manhattan. And we come from Jersey, so like just right on the other side of the tunnel is great. But they closed. They lost their lease or something.
Now, Peruvian, and Scott was talking about best places to eat in the city. Come out of Penn Station on 8th Avenue, because I used to work for Amtrak. Come out of Penn Station, 8th Avenue, and go to get your chicken and rice at the cart right there. Make sure you ask for olives, white sauce, and red sauce. That guy is amazing. But olives, he changes the game because he puts olives in his chicken and rice. But across the street from that, next to I can't remember the name of the pizza place. A lot of people like it. I'm a Roses. Roses in New York City is the pizza I like. But right next to that is a Peruvian restaurant. And I used to work with a gentleman from Peru, and he took me he took me there. Like, it wasn't like, hey, this is Peruvian food. He took me there and said, Murph, try this. But he said most of the people that worked there were actually Brazilian. They weren't Peruvian, but it was Peruvian dishes. And I had like the giant pieces of corn and stuff like that.
You have the anticulchos, the grilled beef heart.
I don't know. See, I don't know all the stuff.
See, that's their pretty much their
Chinese influence. I couldn't get over the Chinese influence on Peruvian food.
Huh.
So he was explaining to me that in Peru, they have a large Chinese population. So if you look at a lot of your Peruvian dishes, they will have noodles or have something soy-based and stuff like that. They have a very large population of Chinese in Peru that he explained it to me.
It's something similar. Fish tacos, they're battered.
Right.
There is an argument made by some historians that they were really created by Japanese workers in Mexico on the coast.
Makes sense.
On the Pacific coast. Yeah. So look, it all intermingles.
What is it? Is it Iranian or Iraqi or something like that? In Mexico, there's a huge Middle Eastern population.
Tacos al pastor. The whole al pastor thing is Lebanese. There was huge. You're talking about Lebanon. Yeah, there was, for some reason, a large Lebanese influx in, I think, the 1800s, but don't hold me to it. But the whole tacos al pastor thing is completely Middle Eastern, and fine.
See, now Jeanette brings this up. She could eat Indian food all day until she dies.
Yeah, but see,
I feel like I want to eat Indian food in London.
Well, yes, that makes perfect sense. But again, that's an evolution of Indian food. I mean, the London national dish, the English national dish of curry, is not really from India. It was invented in England. I think what you have in England is the same thing we have in America with Chinese or sushi, which is you start with a particular cuisine and then you modify it many, many ways. Plus, my understanding cuisine at all, but my understanding is that, like Chinese, we know of a few dishes, but there are multiple regional cuisines in India that we know nothing about.
Gujaratis eat different. The Punjabis and the Gujaratis eat completely different. I lived with in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, of all places. When I was there in 2001 through 2003, the neighborhoods I lived in, huge Punjabi and Gujarati populations. They eat very different.
It's funny, pardon me, how ethnic foods arrive in various places. For some reason, the United States government, in its wisdom, when it was resettling the Hmong population that had helped the CIA in the Vietnam War, that was in the film Green Torino, that ethnic group.
Okay.
Anyway, that Hmong population, which lived in a tropical climate, they resettled them to Minnesota. and they resettled a bunch of
Makes perfect
Somalis
sense.
to Minnesota. Now, I don't know who thought that was a bad joke, but 2 or 3 generations in, you now have among members of the city council in Minneapolis. I mean, it's a good immigration. Well, it's not to get into politics, but
Right.
I'm very pro immigration. It's a good American story.
Well, you know, not to get it, like you said, not to get into politics. But if my great grandmother doesn't come here and give birth to my grandmother, I'm not here. My food palette isn't here. I don't
Yeah.
understand the food. You know, I'm God. David. I love this conversation. This is at the heart of everything I do. When I talk to people, I'm always like, "Where are you from? What do you eat? What's the food there? Is it good?" There's certain cities I want to go to. I want to go to Austin. I want to eat in Austin. Listen, write these down. Write these down
Okay,
on my
but see, they're sending you to Austin because they want you to eat at Franklin Barbecue.
right.
And I've never
Absolutely.
eaten there. I've never eaten there, and I assume it's as good as they say. But on instinct, I will tell you to drive 25 miles outside of Austin and go to Louis Miller's Barbecue, which has been there for 80 years. And that's where you'll get the greatest brisket and sausage on the face of the earth.
Above now Franklin. If for those of you who don't know who Franklin's is, if you've ever watched the movie The Chef, he's in that
Yeah.
movie. He's featured in anytime they talk about brisket. You've seen him on commercials. So you're saying, because have you had them both?
I have not eaten, I'm telling you, I've not
Okay.
eaten at Franklin's, and maybe it's better, but the best barbecue I have ever had in my life is at Louis Miller's in a converted girls' high school gymnasium where the windows up on the second floor that haven't been touched in half a century are so full of grease and smoke that when the light comes through them, it's like a cathedral. And the only thing they put on the brisket is salt and pepper. And we were there. We shot them for diners when Louis' son Bobby was still alive and running the place. Bobby's son Wayne has it now. Bobby has passed. And we started at 3 a.m. with him lighting the fires. And the briskets go in at 3 or 4, and lunch is served at 11. And when they run out, they run out. But the guy was interviewing Bobby right in front of one of the smokers. And Bobby, in the middle of the interview, turned around and started moving briskets around. And this one went here and this one went there. And I interrupted. I said, "Why'd you do that?" He said, "Well, it was time. They needed it." And it's the funny. And they make sausage. You know the secret behind Texas smoked sausage?
What's that?
Bull meat. It was initially figured out as something you could do with a dead bull. The alleged culinary argument these days is, well, bull meat has a good chew to it. But the fact of the matter is, it's about the only thing you could do with a dead bull. And what they would do is they would mix the bull meat, which was extremely lean, with fat to the proportions that worked, and then they'd add seasoning, and that's how they made sausages. And they still do to this day. It's still handmade.
You got me thinking, what is the place in Texas only open on Saturdays? The pitmaster, she's like 80 some years old.
I know what you're talking about, and it will not come to me.
I was just trying to look it up and I couldn't find it. Anyone's still hanging out with us and you can figure it out, let me know. That lady, I watched an entire thing, a documentary on her life and how, she's normally like either a school teacher or like a school lunch lady or something like that. And then she goes and does the barbecue on the side. She's 80 some years old. She was doing it with her son who passed away, and they gave her she took a couple days off and then came back to the barbecue because the barbecue basically has saved her life.
Right.
Because it's given her this new purpose. They are only open on Saturdays. That's another one of those ones I want to go to. I want to take you to Smithfields, though, David. I want to take you to Smithfields in North Carolina. Have you ever had that?
Okay. No.
Smithfields is like Smithfield's is like, we're going to do this show. We're going to do this.
Okay,
Smithfield's
well,
is like a chain.
where is Smithfield? So what sauce are we using?
So this is a true Carolina barbecue, vinegar based.
Mm-hmm. Red or yellow?
And, I'm going to say it's a yellow. It's a yellow.
Mm-hmm.
It's a vinegar based because it's Eastern North Carolina.
Right.
Vinegar based, and Smithfield's is probably as close to a chain in that area that I know of. But they do a Carolina style pulled pork where
Nice.
on the
With
pulled
slaw?
pork, yes, that's Carolina style
On the
pork.
Sammy, yeah.
Has to have slaw. Has to have slaw on the sandwich. And there it is. I love my Jeanette, Miss Tootsie Temenez. She's the one. Who does
okay.
So that's the one in Texas. But it's just, we could definitely. I think this is. Is there anything down? Do we want to eat in Florida?
Sure. You want to eat in Florida? Yeah, you want to eat smoked mullet in Jacksonville.
I like mullet.
You
Croaker,
want to
or
eat
croaker.
I'm sure whatever they bring in the Keys you want to eat. Other than that, it is not and Cuban food, of course. And probably if we did our research, which we would do, I would suspect that given the international hub for South and Central America that Miami is, and Tampa to a lesser extent, there are probably a variety of Southern Hemisphere restaurants that we'd want to try. I'd be looking for, shacks and trucks mostly, but I would do that. I'd love to do a comparison of fritas, which are those Cuban hamburgers with shoestring potatoes on top of them.
I like shoestring potatoes.
Yeah, which are I've never had one. I mean, I've written about them, but I've never tasted one. Yeah, there's enough to do in Florida. Although I got a great story about smoked mullet. I was down there on assignment for NBC when I was working out of Chicago, and back then it was the days of unbridled spending. So, of course, I had rented a Cadillac, and I was running really, really late because I had stopped to pick up a couple of pounds of smoked mullet, and I had it in the glove box. And I was so late, and it was really hot out, and I was so late that I parked the car in front of the terminal and went running in, intending to call Hertz and say I left the car there. And I left the car there in the broiling sun, and I forgot to take my mullet. And then I forgot to call Hertz, and it was like 3 days later when I called Hertz and said, listen, I left my Cadillac in front of the terminal. What I did not say is I've had 2 pounds of smoked mullet baking in there for 3 days. You might want to fumigate the thing. So, yeah. But smoked mullet, if you don't do that, is really good.
But you got to. But see, now you're talking Southern Florida. I'm thinking Pensacola.
So you know what?
Jubilee in Pensacola, Florida.
Well, what I get from Northern Florida, from the Panhandle every year, is that's where I get my Thanksgiving turducken. There's a place called Cajun Specialty Meats. I'm not doing a commercial, but they're terrific. Right. And I order my turducken from them every year because let's face it, you're up there in the Panhandle, you're in the Gulf, you're right. Sort of Louisiana-ish, and they sell a hell of a turducken.
I've tried it once. I didn't love the turducken.
The key to the turducken is the duck because of the fat that it produces and the stuffing that they do. And if it's done well, it's terrific. But again, it's turkey, duck, and chicken. You got turkey and chicken are basically dry bluch, and then that duck will knock you on your ass.
Do you know how I upgrade my turkey every year?
How? You throw it out and eat a sirloin.
No, I wrap mine in bacon.
Fine, you can wrap. I mean, yes, of course.
I don't have to baste it. The bacon fat keeps.
But then it doesn't taste. It tastes like bacon. That's like eggplant. It is eggplant has no flavor. It is simply a flavor delivery system for whatever you put on it. And that's fine.
I do a mean fried eggplant.
Yeah. And what you taste is the oil and the spices and the breadcrumbs. And somewhere in the middle of that, there's some sort of neutral wallboard that was a vegetable once.
My great grandmother, Grandma Rosie, is rolling over in her grave.
Okay. Well, Grandma Rosie, I'm sure, had all sorts of wonderful flavors on that eggplant, but the eggplant itself is like plastic.
Well, so Dave, we've got to. I am in on this road trip.
Me too.
Because I think road trip shows are some of my favorite.
They're the best,
especially when you get two guys that I'm not sure how old you are. I'm 45. You are.
I'm 6.
How old are you? It froze.
I'm 60. I am 66. I will be 67 in November.
So this is perfect. You get a 45-year-old guy, a 67-year-old guy. We go on a road trip. If they want to use my RV, like I said, I got a 31-foot.
Now, I want to be clear. Do you or do you not have blue water in your toilet?
I do not have blue water. I haven't.
Then I will consider it.
I actually have they're drop-ins. They're like orange. They're like a citrus smell.
Oh, great. Now we're talking orange toilet water.
Orange toilet water. It's great. It's fine.
I will discuss this at some length with you offline.
We'll talk about it offline. but this this is so great. And we can go and through your connections, we'll do the podcast. What we'll do is we'll do the podcast as it's going. My wife jumped in. She has a 1966 Thunderbird, turquoise.
Well, now you're talking. Hold on.
She does have a 66. I bought her that for her 40th birthday, a 66 Thunderbird. It's a beautiful car. We just have to see.
Well, now you're talking. Okay.
So I'm saying we hit these things up, and you and I, brother, I think what the best part about it is other than this hour and 37 minutes we're at, we really don't know each other. So that makes for
we'll meet each other on the road.
So it's an interesting dynamic there. They could start off filming me in Albany. Mm-hmm. I'll pick you up in Jersey, and we'll start off eating in Jersey, and then we'll just go from there.
I'm in. I'm in, dude.
Down. I'm in.
Come pick me up in Jersey. Just bring some Albany hot dogs, would you?
Well, we got to do the Albany. Maybe we'll finish with the Albany hot dogs.
That's possible.
That's
not a bad idea.
Finish with the Albany hot dogs. We'll hit your family and my family across the country. They'll introduce us to stuff because that's how you normally find stuff is somebody in your family introduces you to. We'll load the RV with tasty cakes. We'll get on the road.
I'm in.
Like my wife, so I'm going to rely on you. So
as always, I got it.
You got this, and I'm dead serious. I'm serious as a heart attack. You have no idea, Dave. You have
this no idea. This would be great, Sean. Let's make it happen.
It's so much fun, and I know
Let's make it happen.
With it. As always, folks, David has been an amazing guest. You can find him on Twitter, Instagram. It's at Page PROD production. So at Page Production, you can find him. Make sure you take a moment, you follow, give him all the love that we have here on the show. At the same time, make sure you go out and get you a copy of Food Americana. And you said is there 5 other books besides this one?
No. Food Americana is the first. I'm working on the second.
And then him and I are going to work on the third.
Damn straight.
We're going to make this happen because this is, I wear my spirit animal shirt here, and we're going to make this happen. Trying to park a 31-foot RV across America will be a blast. That'll be the most entertaining thing.
Keep the fridge loaded. I'm in.
I am down with that. So we're gonna do that. Make sure you give him all the love, subscribe to anything that you find him on. Make sure once our show starts, you like and subscribe to that because it is going to be a hot mess of a 45 and a 67-year-old man drinking bourbon, eating good, smoking cigars, finding the best lox and bagels and seafood across America and the best ethnic food that we can figure out.
I'm in.
And you know what? You actually brought up a great point. Maybe we
What?
should find out from the State Department or somebody like where they've immigrated people in from different cultures. Like, hey, these
Oh, you know what? We can certainly figure out what the predominant recent ethnic
I think that's
group is in each city and go there.
I think
You
that would be
you
fun.
mentioned Ethiopian. I've been to Ethiopia.
Have you?
It,
See, I want to go there. I think that's a beautiful. Like, if you do any
it
research,
is the single most beautiful country I have ever been to. It's not just hungry people in a desert, as tragic as that was.
right?
I was in a Royal Air Force, their version of the C-130. They were taking us up somewhere. Me and my correspondent, the crew was in another plane. And we were standing in the cockpit behind the pilot and the co-pilot. And they decided to play Whose is Bigger. And we're zipping along at, I don't know, 400, 500 miles an hour. And he dropped that baby to 30 feet above the desert floor, waiting for us to cry uncle. And neither one of us did. And he finally cracked and went back up. So,
Oh, love it.
which is, they have incredible pine forest in Ethiopia. And mountains. It's just extraordinary.
Well,
And the nicest people. Oh, what a sweet, sweet culture. Just great.
well, there's so many things. That's where they, for those of you that follow any of the other History Channel shows, that's where supposedly the Grails are at, is in Ethiopia. They still exist there, and they have the I don't know if they're considered temples or what they're considered as, that are built into the ground that the king told everyone that the angels built is in Ethiopia. You never seen
It's
that?
an incredible place. No,
Oh God!
incredible
Like,
place.
so they're all these like temples that are built underground, and they have these canopies over them that remind you of gas station canopies that are over top of them
Wow.
to protect them. And the biggest thing that these engineers have run into issues with is they're all built straight down into the ground, flush with the top, straight down into the ground. But the problem is as far as their faith is concerned over there, they were built by the angels at night. So when these guys are building are trying to do stuff to help them out, they cannot lose a single piece because they were touched by the hands of angels. So
Wow.
they are all highly religious. Everything is a religious monument. Everything is a religious figure. So you have to be very careful in their faith and in the way they see things. It's amazing. So we're gonna finish. We're gonna do our U.S. tour, and then we'll do our European tour, and that's a whole nother thing. They'll have to get us a
Fine.
better
I'm
RV than
in.
mine. Maybe they
Yeah,
can get us
well,
one of those. What is it? Earth Roamer RVs. We'll get one of those. That'll be
okay.
awesome.
No orange toilet water.
No orange toilet water in that one. That'll just be
Okay.
you and
It's a
I.
deal.
Oh, this will
Fine.
be
I'm
so
in.
good. Like look, my agent is really just me. So just have somebody call me, and we'll make this happen.
Fine. I'll have my people talk to your people.
Have your people just call me because it's just me.
Okay, fine. Great.
Now
Well,
don't
my
go
people
anywhere.
is my wife, who's also my lawyer, so we're good.
Sounds perfect. This is
Okay.
David. I feel like hopefully everything works out here. I have made a new friend.
Same here.
Absolutely. You are
Same here,
well.
Sean. It's been a delight.
You are welcome to belly up to the bar anytime you would like. Anything you've got going on. This is a blast. Again,
Thank
folks,
you.
make sure you follow Food Americana. Go find David, all the stuff he's got on. After this is over, don't go anywhere. I got to talk to you something after we end this. As always, if you've gone all the way through here and you've enjoyed this, make sure you take a moment, you like, you subscribe, you follow either the Facebook page, YouTube, follow both of those, and go over to whatever type of phone you have, whether it be a Google phone, whether it be an Apple phone. You make sure that you go on there and you follow our show there. That's important. You may not understand it, but you have to follow it on those devices. You might be watching this. I just had a family event over the weekend. Everybody's like, yeah, we love watching you live. It's great. Yeah, but you got to follow those other things because those other things get other people to watch. And then it grows and grows. And then the show that David and I are on, you guys will actually want to watch us because it's going to be amazing. Him and I eating and him going, Sean, you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm going, listen to me. I got this. This is a beautiful thing. This will be wonderful. We'll sit down. We'll have lox. We'll have bagels. It'll be beautiful.
Perfect. Couldn't be better.
You could only understand that if you grew up in cultures like David and I grew up. David, as always, the most important thing on my show is that the guest gets the last word. What is the last word of the day for us?
Well, first, this has been great. Thank you. The last word of the day is, in a world of chain restaurants, eat real food made by people who give a damn.
All righty, folks. Be sure to push your stool in.
This has been an Earplug Podcast presentation. Found on earplugpodcast.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, and wherever your favorite podcasts are found.